to the show. I have with me Panna Mehta, who is exploring herself through traditional Jain texts, which have been published 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And she's been a teacher, teaching undergraduates and postgraduates in psychology, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you.
I find it fascinating when somebody uses the term self-exploration and the varied ways that people have been trying to understand their self.
True.
So my first question is very basic. Why try and understand the self? यही हाथ है, यही body है, यही आँखें हैं, यही नाक है, यही कान है. They are doing what they are doing. So what is there to understand besides what is the apparent truth?
As you said, they are doing what they are doing. If they are doing what they are doing, I should do what I am supposed to do. Correctly, as efficiently and as correctly I can do. So to know myself is also my work, because everything else that does not have gnan will not be able to know. I have gnan, so I will be able to know. So if I don't know my own self, how does it help me?
Okay. How do you know that this is not the self? Because you have very clearly demarcated that these are doing what they are doing. Well, they are not independent. So, for example, a dead body or a diseased body, the eyes may not see, the ears may not hear. So, how come you're demarcating the two? Right now, when I'm talking to you, I meaning this form and this mind that I have is combined. Why would you think that there is more to it?
Very nice. While you are using some words, you see, we are using the words, they are combined. So they are combined. So when you say they are combined, it inherently says they are two, because combination of. So somewhere, we also have this understanding that there are two, not just one. And this text that I'm reading gives you more logical reasonings to make out how it is. So like you're saying that they are not doing the work when they're dead. So when we are saying dead, we know that there is something that has disconnected from it, and that's why we are calling it dead. So we know it's functioning because of the presence of something, and that presence of something is getting detached from this. That's when they are not functioning. So we know that too, because something can get detached if they are different. If they are same, it cannot get detached from that, because it's one thing, it's one unit. But we know they are two units. That's why we know they will detach from each other. So there seems to be something else that also is there, which I don't know completely, but I can make out the presence of it. So let's know it. If I can make out that there's something present and I have the ability to know, so let's know it and see how it helps knowing.
Okay, I want to dig this further. I'm not leaving you at this lovely answer that you've given. So, for example, when I meant it is two, it could also mean like the tire of a car is punctured.
Correct.
I don't call it the car is punctured. I say the tire of the car is punctured. So a doctor would probably answer you that the eyes can't see because so and so gland is not working, or a certain process that was in place has malfunctioned at some point and they are trying to repair it. So there is a physical verifiable reality of that gland or that process at work.
Correct.
So how would you answer that then?
Okay, so when we are saying, let's say, as you said, a tire of a car. Okay, so if you know, we all have understood that a car is assembled using a lot of tools. Now, whether we are also something that has been assembled, we are formed by assembling things, or we are something. Similarly, there's this very common example in literature that when you're saying this of this, when we are using of, a tire of a. So when you're using the word of, it can be used two ways. when two different things are placed with each other, so when you use of, or something that is within you and it's a quality, and still the word of, term of would be used. For example, if I have a sugar in a box, so I'll say sugar in a box. Okay, and similarly, sugar has sweetness in it. So there's sweetness in it. But now that sweetness and sugar are not two different things, like a box and a sugar. So that's how when you are using the off term, that car, we can narrate by saying that gland of these eyes are not working, but you say eyes are not working. And car, tire of a car is a puncture, car is puncture. We also say car puncture ho gayi hai. ऐसा नहीं है कि टायर पंचर हो गया है ऐसी कोई.
True. That
हाँ.
was just to set an example.
Correct, correct. So both kind of statements are possible, but there are things that are related to each other, so we call it each other's, and there are things that are its own, and we call it that. It's like a sugar, sweetness of sugar. They are not two things; they are one. Sweetness and sugar is one. Tire and a car are two. So
Yeah.
that's how body and ourself are two, like a tire in a car or a sugar in a box. While knowing the ability to know and me are one, like a sweetness in sugar. That's how.
Uh, One question that is coming to mind is my understanding of life so far, the number of years I've spent on earth and spoken to people like you who have taken this journey. I find that people uh, are on this journey for a reason. They start because of a reason. That reason may become invalid as you go forward, perhaps, or change, or evolve, or deepen, whatever. So, what prompted you to go down this path?
Okay, so from childhood, as you go to temple, they do preach you that there is moksha and one can attain moksha, one has to attain the moksha. That's the ultimate goal. So in terms of learning, that has been learned. Second thing, they say everybody wants happiness, sukh ki चाह सबको है. By and large, I had a happy life. So सुख की चाह तो फुलफिल हो ही रही थी. ऐसा नहीं था कि it was such that, okay, of course, permanent sukh and things like that. But knowing that there is something that's been explained in literature, and it is a reasoning, it's a thought process that gives you a not a blind faith, but it gives you reasoning. It gives you a direction कि आपको लगता है कि जो ये बोल रहे हैं ऐसा कुछ है. So for me, it was an exploration because of course, and then as you move, you realize कि जिसको आप कह रहे थे मैं सुखी हूँ, वो सुख और ये सुख, they're not intensity wise different. They are completely different in terms of uh, its its type of
Experience.
its type, only a different type. This sukh and that sukh is a different type and not just intensity wise increasing. So for me, basically, because I heard somebody saying about this, I thought, okay, let's explore it. And as I started exploring it, I realized that this makes a lot of sense. And it's most just like we study formally, we start believing things that is logical, that's reasoning, that's scientific. So as I started studying this, I realized this is far more logical, far more rational, because this side there is still tentative answers. Science is still giving some answers that are tentative, but this side they were very firm. And as you try to explore them, you also get the realization that yes, that's the answer. So for me, it was more of an exploration for because there is something. So let's explore kind of thing.
Okay, I have a very provocative question here now.
Uh-huh.
Because I have been a writer, I have read like innumerable number of books.
Uh-huh.
Have been knowledgeable on a lot of subjects.
Hmm.
Because I am from advertising, I show that I know a lot of things about a lot of subjects, even though it might not always be true. I'm talking about the initial part of my career when you're sitting with a client and you cannot tell him outright that you don't understand this. So you will go back and do research, but on the spur of the moment, you will show that, oh, I am in command of the situation, I know it.
Yes, yes.
Over a period, I also realized that the problem did not only lie with my understanding of the subject, that the books themselves had a limitation to what they were talking about because of anything, the number of pages of the book, for example, the context of the subject, the context of the person writing the book. So many varied things, not necessarily that they were trying to lie about it, that they understood a certain aspect of the subject and that they brought to me and which related to my logic. Now, my provocative question is that I presume that you've been born in Jain religion only, besides which you are studying Jain sects literature. There is already a lot of coloring that happens when we are belonging to a certain religion. In my case, for example, I would follow Sikh religion and I relate to a lot of things. Yet, my question to you is, you've understood certain truths or certain things that you relate to. My question to you is, if you were not a Jain, if you would have not read these scriptures, if you would have not understood in the manner that you have, all the conditions that have enabled you to arrive at this truth, would you still have arrived at this truth? So if there was a Panna who was non-Jain, uneducated, uh, illiterate in the real sense, where you didn't know any language at all, would these truths still be available to you? If yes, how do you see that?
Would this truth still be available to me? I don't know. As in, see, in terms of this truth are right now available in literature. Somebody saying it, so I could have got it if somebody talks about it, because I would have still have had people around me. And even if I'm not literate, I understand language, conversation language. I may not understand literature in terms of write. I may not be able to read because I'm not literate. But even if I'm not literate, I understand conversations, right?
True.
The truth would have been available to me if I would have come across people who would have spoken about it. And there are a number of saints around. So, in that way, maybe this truth would have been available to me. If I was not Jain or I was Jain with this kind of world that we are living in, where it's a globalization, maybe the truth would have been available to me because of availability of media, social media, or
Yeah.
technology and things like that. So, if your question was, I don't know if I've got your question right. If your question was whether I would have had access to all of this, maybe yes, I could have had access to it. But because it's a very hypothetical, now that I'm not living that life, I have to give an hypothetical answer as
True.
well. But looking at these availabilities, I think it could have been available to me. It
Okay.
is accessible. So there are a lot of non-Jains that also have access. I know them. They have been reading the same text that I'm reading. So, like it is accessible to them, it would have been accessible to me. And there are also people who are not literate. They still don't know how to sign, but they know what I know right now. So, looking
True.
at them, I can say yes, because they are not literate, but they still have. Of course, I'm not come across a person who is illiterate and non-Jain. And I think it's a very
Yeah.
difficult combination to find today, because at least in Jain community and social network that we have, most of them are literate. Completely illiterate people, I hardly know anybody who is completely illiterate, other than one my cook right now.
Yeah.
She says she can't sign.
Uh,
Otherwise, all my servants also till now
yeah.
that I know. Yeah.
So, okay. I'll push it a little further.
Huh.
Uh, say you are in a jungle. Say
Huh.
you are in a jungle.
Hmm.
There is nobody around you to give you this knowledge that you're getting from certain sources. So you're not hearing it
Hmm.
and you're not reading it.
Hmm.
Your search is still the same.
Hmm.
As a human being, your search is still the same. How would you see right now? You got a ready-made uh, set of media in terms of literature or listening to say talks perhaps or whatever. But suppose all of this is also taken away. Just that your search is there. And as a person, you're wondering, because I think this search is even more older than all of our learnings also, perhaps. You're trying to search for meaning or purpose or so many other things and other words that we can give it. Set religion is a later stage of human evolution, I would think. So, for example, if you were in Mahavir's place and like he searched for it, and I do not know in terms of historic what was the time that he was around. So there would have been others who would have got the truth before him. They may not be Jain, obviously, but it does not matter. My question is more irrespective of religion. As a seeker, how do you see yourself learning? Is there a possibility to look at it that way for you? And if yes, what is it? So that non-Jains can also connect to your answer in terms of, because like going back to the first question, आंखें देखती हैं, किसकी आंखें हैं, क्या फर्क पड़ता है कि हिंदू की है कि मुस्लिम की है कि जैन की है कि सिख की है? तो उनका तो कोई धर्म नहीं है, तो उनका धर्म वो पाल रही है, जैसे आपने बहुत अच्छे से बोला. So my question is, ये seeking का, how do you relate to the seeking, irrespective, if you were to be irrespective of the Jain part of it, what is it?
So basically, the situation that you have said कि जंगल में है, कुछ एक्सेस नहीं है ये सब का, उस समय भी सीकिंग होगा. That's how you have said the scenario. But this urge to seek an answer to this question, who I am, also is an influenced question. So probably I will not have that seeking at that point in time. If I was to be in a jungle where I don't have access to this kind of scenario that helps me to, have a higher order thinking, higher order in terms of this deep kind of thinking process. So to have this kind of thinking suddenly without any access to any of this probably would not take place. So I will not have that seeking. To generate that seeking, also this kind of environment has helped to reach. I would have learned, I would have had the basic instincts that all of us have, is to eat food or to sleep and things like that. But this deeper query as to who I am maybe is not a very naturally arising point. On the other hand, in our philosophy, and I think most philosophies do believe in pap and punya and its results. So to get this surrounding is also a result of punya. Getting an answer to that may not be a result of punya or pap, because that's a struggle and that's a result of your struggle and not result of punya or pap, a good deed or a past. You have done something good in past or bad in past, and you're getting this as a result of that. So getting an answer to your question may not be a result of punya pap, but getting an access to things that helps you to arrive to this kind of answers is a result of punya and pap. So if I had a lot of punya, and if I was still at a jungle, I would have got access accidentally to any of this, and I would have got the urge to seek and maybe the answer to my query as well. So
in that sense, are we agreeing that the process and the learnings that you had is not really dependent only on the literature or the hearing of it, but can happen independently, naturally to a human being, irrespective of whatever situations they find themselves in, if they have obviously the right amount of good deeds, good karma, and the time is right? Is it a possibility that people can have this?
Yes, you can get, you can, if you have done good things in past, good karma, then you will get access to this. So it's dependent, but it's dependent in terms of that you will still get an access to it and then you will go further. So that way it's dependent.
True, true. Uh, it is very nice to listen to all these things, but I like the challenges that the path brings. So, what have been your toughest challenges as far as your seeking is concerned?
Challenge. Um, am I supposed to say the challenges I faced in getting access to it, or understanding it? Okay, so one challenge, of course, I don't know Sanskrit, Prakrit. So original, I don't know. I didn't face this as challenge, but a superficialist challenge because I had an answer to it also. Sometimes we call challenge when we don't have an answer to it, and then we call it as a challenge. Actually, I had that as a problem that I also had an way to resolve it. So I don't know whether to call it as a challenge, but yes, Sanskrit Prakrit I didn't know. So I had to rely on people who know Sanskrit Prakrit and ask them to translate it just the word, not give me the meaning of it, because I wanted to know what exactly the person has written in Sanskrit and Prakrit, and I just needed a translation, exact literal translation of it, and not meaning. Most of the time, people gives you meaning because they've learned Sanskrit and Prakrit. They ask you to read the paragraph and then give you the meaning of it. So yes, one was that challenge, but somehow I got access to people who were ready to give me exact answers. And of course, with internet, I could search myself as well, the word and its meaning. So that was one challenge that I had. Uh, Initially, I did think that it will be challenging because the write up would be more assertive writing, as in they will just assert their point. But fortunately, that's not how acharyas, Purva acharyas, the old acharya had the writing style. The writing style was to give you how we write research paper in science. They don't assert the point, they explain the point with logics. So they ask you to think in that logical way, think in those way and find out if you find it logical. So they give you entire explanation from all perspective that you can. So basically, this acharyas have written it such a beautiful way that it gives you a reasoning, it gives you answers to the questions. They also knew what kind of questions you will have as you read. So they have assumed those answers, then answered those questions also. So they've assumed the questions, they've answered the questions. So writing is a very beautiful thing, the way they've written. So in terms of understanding them, it was not very challenging. But yet, if there were content that I was reading which had reference to previous writing or some other books writing, uh, the explanation of those words were in another book and not this book. So then I had some people around me who were able to tell me that where that book will be and how I find. They were there to answer me. So in terms of understanding the path that I'm moving on, I'm fortunate to have every possible access that gives me an answer uh, to challenges that I face while understanding it. Socially, as I said, I was fortunate in having a social environment also. Basically, in Jainism, we have major two sections, Digambar and Shvetambar. So uh, my entire family follows Shvetambar, and I have also followed the same from my childhood. Only my father's uncle, he was following Digambar. And after reading his side of he also was a writer, so I read his books and then I moved towards studying Digambar Sastra. So I was fortunate that none of my family member objected me moving from Digambar Shvetambar to Digambar side of literature and things like that. So I was, in fact, very fortunate. So I did not have major challenges either in understanding, maybe education, because I have done MA and psychology. So psychology is also a very scientific subject. So I already had a mind of reading anything that is more scientific reading. So because I had that kind of mindset, it helped me to understand this scientific writing that Acharya was writing. Because often I've seen people not realizing that what Acharya is writing is a very research type writing, and it's not a literature type like writing. A lot of people fail there, and then because they fail to recognize that, they fail to pick up the depth of it. I was fortunate because I had a science-based education, which made my mind more scientific oriented. And having that scientific oriented helped me because the acharyas are also writing in a scientific oriented style of writing. So I was able to pick up more depth of what acharya is conveying than I saw people around me.
Okay. One little question, again a little provocative.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know this is not entertainment for you? Even though it is spiritual, but it gives you enjoyment of a certain kind, and you're reading and intellectually. I have been there as a writer. One reads things and one reads both sides of the things, and one understands, and this cross connections, and there is a lot of happiness in realizing certain truths by reading or by making connections that other people haven't made, and then I think, oh, I've got it. And then in the evening I have stomach ache and I can't deal with my knowledge, and I'm seeing इतना छोटा तो सहन होता नहीं, इतनी बड़ी बड़ी बातें करके क्या तुम पहुंच गए कहीं. So how do you ensure that this doesn't become a superficial reading of the situation?
I really appreciate your question. It's a beautiful question to ask. And not to name it as entertainment was a really, I mean, it's a very,
It's
very,
a
very,
true thing. It's a genuine thing. I have gone through it, so I
but
would know.
not a lot of people can ask a question so clearly like you asked. And it's a very, very relevant and very worth a question to ask. Uh,
Yeah,
yes, it is an entertainment, and this entertainment should be there. So, but it should not only be there. This is not the only thing that you. So, if suppose I was not enjoying myself reading, I would not have gone further. So that joy of reading should be there to help you to move ahead in reading. So in that way, it is entertaining, and it is not bad to have it as an entertaining thing.
yeah,
But as you read, you're enjoying, you're also trying to explore what you're reading, right? And so while you're exploring, you are also seeing the fruits of it. So as you try to explore, you're also saying that, okay, as I'm exploring, I'm getting this as a result. And you can make out the difference of the joy that you're getting while you're reading, which we are labeling as entertainment, and the joy of realization of what you've said. And it's not just the joy of realization of what they have said, the realization of, yes, this is it, kind of that realize. And that joy is not entertainment if we had to differentiate. Second thing, part of your question was also a beautiful question that, पचा नहीं सकते, इतना पढ़ा है, तो you start feeling like you tell others, which is a kind of bhumika where we are right now. कि जो पढ़ते हैं ना, ऐसा इतनी एक्साइटमेंट हो जाती है, उसकी इतनी खुशी होती है कि उसकी एक एक्साइटमेंट आ जाती है टू शेयर इट विद अदर्स. So that is definitely there. Some people are fortunate to have a circle where they can, say it, and receiver also can take it really well. Sometimes we don't have that kind of circle, and you just have to calm your excitement down कि you can't share it with others. And Jain literature में तो ऐसा है कि जैसे महावीर स्वामी जैसे दीक्षा लेते हैं, so they become moon until they have achieved a complete enlightenment, and so they have achieved a certain part of enlightenment, but केवल ज्ञान, सम्यक ज्ञान हो गया है, केवल ज्ञान नहीं हुआ, तो तब तक वो मौन रहते हैं. And it is appreciated that they have so much of strength कि वो पचा पाते, जितना ज्ञान लिया इतना एक्साइटमेंट नहीं हो जाता देने की भी. तो यस, होता है, ऐसी
okay,
एक्साइटमेंट होती है.
okay.
Sometimes you have people to share, sometimes you
Uh,
don't.
since you are being so good about my provoking you from every angle, I'll add one more aspect to it. You
I didn't
said
know.
one of your servants is uneducated.
Hmm.
Uh, does he see that you have changed with all this reading? He or she, whoever it is, do they understand that there is a change, or do they say मालिक तो मालिक ही है, वो तो हमको गुस्सा करके ही काम करवा लेते हैं? और generally Jains are very um, talk very in a mellow manner.
So no, people can't recognize the change that's there in me. In fact, to some extent, reverse effect they see on me because situations that were not there earlier in my life comes now. So the way I reacted to them, I never had to react that way earlier. So because I never reacted that way earlier and I'm reacting that way now, they don't realize that I'm reacting that way because the situation has come right now that way. Rather they feel अरे पन्ना तो ऐसी थी नहीं ऐसी हो गई, because the reactions are more negative than positive. How others like angry reactions है, तो वो anger की requirement पहले थी नहीं तो किया नहीं, अब required anger है तो required anger किया है, so they feel कि पन्ना has become aggressive. But I think those kind of validations, uh, if, a person who is going into this journey, they don't need these validations from external source. Or if they need validations from external source, it's the circle who already know, who have, somebody who's validating also has some caliber. So
Okay.
they would stick at home. But yes, to answer your question, they can't recognize, and they are not recognizing.
Okay.
If I take this little further, those who knew me very well earlier and those who still know me very well today, they do see the change. They do see the change and they do realize that you know a lot of deeper things, that you are seeing things more deeply than we are or than you were earlier. But it needs a lot of closeness with that person for that person to recognize.
Okay. Do you study your anger and your quote unquote what we call defilements, negative of the mind? Do you study them for yourself, away from the literature part of it? Now that once you know the literature, do you find that you are making a conscious effort in reading whether you have become purer genuinely? Because the mind is known to us most times. So for example, if I go to a restaurant and I see a good dish coming and I know that I'm already salivating and very looking forward to having it, or if it does not turn out the way that I thought it would be, I get angry or upset. Similarly, any of these Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, whatever, do you study that in yourself? And if you do, how and what is the process for you?
A study of this kind of emotion is the process of self-exploration, because that's a constant process that you need to know, to recognize. So basically, positive or negative, that we generally say positive and negative, good feelings, bad feelings, are all considered as vikari bhav when we see it from the literature point of view. And swabhavik bhav is your ability to know. So this process of constantly staying at a conscious level of being able to differentiate between the two, that okay, all this urge of doing good to people or urge of doing bad to people or urge of having sattvic food or tamasic food, one can have urge of both, right? So all this urge that we have, and your ability to know that I know, to keep differentiating between the two, Swabhav and Vibhav, is a process. So yes, because uh, I mean, if I don't do it, then it will become, like you said earlier, that my reading will become entertainment. But if I do this, then I'm on the path of it. The level of it keeps varying. Sometimes throughout the day you are conscious, and every moment you are conscious your level of consciousness is that level that even if you have this urge, you are recognizing the urge, and sometimes you are so unaware, you have forgotten that you are supposed to be at that level, so you drop down and you don't realize, you simply have urge and you finish it, and then you recognize later, oh, today I had this urge and I never realized it. So both the path, it's a path, so ups and downs.
Okay. To connect it back to, say, I just want to understand that example. So suppose you fired that guy for not doing his job properly or because the situation was such. Do you introspect on that? That okay, maybe because within anger also, when I used to look at myself, there are levels. There are times when one doesn't know. You do the firing and then realize, oh my God, I was fully angry. I had no clue whether I was angry or not. Other times, as it grows with practice, you studying and you know that earlier you used to fire in a certain manner and now the quality of the firing is more compassionate. It's rare. I'm not saying it happens very often because I think the moment you raise your voice, you've already lost a lot of it.
Yes, anger
So,
is not
do you
good.
do you realize these changes? And suppose you have, say, today before this talk, he did something with the wiring, and you are angry, and you just told him something. Now, when you come back here, do you introspect whether this was the right thing to do, whether this has been understood correctly? Because situations and people will always be out of control. The only thing that we can control is our reaction to it, if at all we are aware of it. So, how do you see it?
Uh, so one, even if your anger is out of compassion, it can still go out of blue. So it's
Proportion.
necessary that every time that your anger is up of an intensity, is not coming from compassion. It still may be coming from compassion, but it still is beyond the level it is required. So that may also, that kind of combination does take place. Yes, you do realize that you are literally going beyond the requirement of the situation. Uh, how do you control them? So basically, as you read, you realize that some level, as you reach certain level of understanding, some kind of angers goes away. Some kind of anger still stay with you. So you have to realize that what kind of anger has stayed with you and what kind of anger has gone away from you. Like anger without compassion. Do I have them now? Uh, So anger with compassion and anger without compassion. So that kind of angers will not take place. But this kind of anger, which will be seen at out of blue, and you also realize that it was just beyond your, you afterwards you realize that okay, you don't need to be so intensified in your emotion, but you ended up doing it, and you know that that's kind of because you are at a situation. Sorry, because you are in a certain state, भूमिका इतनी ही बनी है आपकी. तो नॉट दैट यू टेक भूमिका एज एन एक्सक्यूज कि मेरी भूमिका में तो इतनी होना उतना एंगर तो होना है, बट यू ऑल्सो नो दैट ओके ये भूमिका में ये होना है और इससे आगे की भूमिका में नहीं होना है, तो आई हैव टू मूव फर्दर. So it is also helping you to realize what state of self exploration journey that you have reached. How you also know how to come out of it. So but this process is not very common, like we know this, गुस्सा आता है तो count backwards, 10 by backwards and things like that. ऐसा वाला प्रोसेस नहीं है. ये एंगर को जीतने का भी प्रोसेस ये है कि स्वभाव और विभाव को अलग समझो. So it's a more deeper process, and that same process takes care of all the vibhav, whether it's a anger or very high affection. So
True.
sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
One last question that is coming to mind. Do you also act on the new learning? So, would you go and apologize to someone where you think you have gone beyond a certain point of anger? Or is there any other process of reconciliation that you do? Maybe say a kind word or two or something, I don't know.
The qualities that you are referring to are qualities that makes you humble. And these qualities one develops before starting the journey of self-exploration. So, to be able to forgive somebody, or to be able to go and ask for forgiveness, and these qualities one develops before. Of course, that also enhances the quality, improves or gets better and better as you move on to journey, and it becomes more natural also. Earlier, even if it was natural, it is a struggleful natural. Now it's extremely natural. It just comes, quicker and easier, or things like that. So that way, yes, the qualities have improved, but these qualities one would have before starting the journey. Being humble.
Hmm. Wonderful. This has been a very intensive chat in very short time. I think every question has been very precise and the answers have been beautiful. I am so glad we had this conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time.
You also asked a little some questions that were really nice to, it feels good to answer those questions, and it goes to receive that question. So I
Thank
also
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.